He's a Vastayan hunter from the Shuriman jungles who lives for one thing, the thrill of the hunt. Today we explore the Pridestalker, Rengar. Welcome to Runeterra Tourist, I'm Patrick. I don't know anything about these people yet, so let's explore them together. Rengar sits at a 4.1% pick rate, probably about B tier on the current ratings as of recording, and he's a legitimate mid-tier jungler. Basically, not dominant, not really niche, just reliable. And the community reputation appears to be built around one thing, this assassination fantasy, right? Like, when he works, he is incredible, and when he doesn't, he's just invisible and useless. His mains are devoted and tend to be patient, calculated players, something I could personally take a lesson from. I managed to pull one of his legend cards and Thrill of the Hunt during a pre-Rift event where I got a Jhin seeded pack, and so it was a super aggro deck to begin with, but then somebody said, you should use Rengar, and I did, and he's very straightforward and incredible to play. How he'll fare in this meta remains to be seen, and we've just had the two RQs, and there's also the tournaments in China, and other than an Aurora version, didn't really look too great for our Pridestalker here. And his lore is kind of lean, so is that going to be a problem? I mean, what do we have to say about the Pridestalker? Rengar is Kailash, a tribe of Shuriman Vastayan whose entire culture is revolving around the honor and glory of the hunt. And Vastayan are ancient demi-humans connected to the spirit realm, so they have this enhanced physical ability and longevity. Now, you're not going to believe this, but Rengar himself is reported to be about 181 years old. So we've got another one of those, he's only as old as he feels thing. I don't know. Anyway, he was born the runt of the litter to the tribe's chieftain, Punjaf, who basically believed his son's small size rendered him worthless. So he ignored Rengar and assumed that he would just starve to death. We got a real Father of the Year award there. So Rengar fled the camp in shame, and he survived in the jungle on grubs and plants. And then he was nearly killed by a legendary human hunter, Markhan, who spared him because he considered him not worthy of his blade. The amount of negging Rengar is taking in his early childhood is something else. Rengar spent months following Markhan around, feeding off of his kills and watching the way he works, studying his moves, and ultimately learning how to become a real hunter. Eventually, Markhan grew sick of this pathetic cub following him around, and so he put a knife to Rengar's throat and informed him that the only way he was going to be a hunter was to actually hunt. And so, in more model behavior, he tossed Rengar a knife and kicked him down a ravine, and where he was forced to make his first kill. So they parted ways, and he pushed himself to be a better hunter, almost to the brink as he scoured the Shuriama. Eventually, he started to come back with more trophies instead of scars. He's got this polished sandhawk skull, braided shrieker teeth into his hair, and eventually he returned back to the tribe when he felt he was ready to be accepted. Punjaf scoffed at him, basically decreed that the only way he was going to be brought back into the tribe and accepted was if he brought back Kha'Zix's head, this void creature that was stalking the jungles. Blinded by the eagerness of an internet influencer to be accepted, he followed this void creature into the jungles, except he allowed Kha'Zix to get the jump on him. Or I guess in Kha'Zix's story, he always knew he was there, and Rengar says he got a jump. Interesting mix in stories in there, but needless to say, when they encountered each other, an epic fight ensued. Amidst the skirmish, Kha'Zix ripped out one of Rengar's eyes and devoured it in a very descriptive manner into the story, which I'll spare you on this video. But needless to say, he relished eating part of his enemy right in front of Rengar. Yet after a long battle, eventually it ended in a kind of stalemate. Kha'Zix went off and Rengar admitted defeat since he didn't have the trophy that he was sought to get. With his head hung low, Rengar returned to the tribe in defeat. And as you would imagine, his father chastised him in front of everybody. But amidst this speech, Rengar looked around his father's abode and noticed that all of the trophies that were hung around there were dusty or old, not well taken care of. And so the chieftain hadn't clearly hunted in a long time. He was just kind of going off of his reputation, and that he sent Rengar to hunt Kazakhs because he was too scared to do it himself. With this realization, Rengar interrupted his father and pointed out that many Kilosh were blessed with these strong bodies or comfortable homes, but he had to learn how to hunt on his own, and that he was born facing death. He had to teach himself everything. His father didn't do squat, and basically he had the trophies and the scars to prove it. He points to his missing eye and indicates that that too is a trophy, noting that he doesn't give up on a fight. And after making this statement, he leaps on his father and, little grotesque imagery warning here, guts him from neck to belly. That's what it says in the bio. After he slayed his father, the fiercest warriors of the tribe were ready to declare him the new chieftain. They had a crown of flame roses ready to designate him as their new ruler, but Rengar spurned this and ultimately left the village. And notably, he didn't take a trophy after killing his father, noting that it wasn't a kill worth remembering. Very Shakespearean. So he's made it his mission to hunt down Kazakhs and defeat him, not for the Kilosh, but for himself. And the lore pretty much stops there. Yeah, they just kind of left his story at that, and so it's the whole runt proves himself in front of the tribe thing, but grows to learn that he just only needs to prove his worth to himself, which is fine. There's the Oedipal angle as well of killing his father to claim his leadership. It's fine, but also it said he's the runt of a litter, so do his siblings have anything to say about his killing of the father? And where's his mother in all of this? She too would think, yeah, it's fine. Throw him, he can throw him out. I mean, it's very savage if that's the case, but they don't indicate anything about his family. This feels like a really missed opportunity for a sitcom or a reality TV program or something. So they've completely glossed over it, and all we're left with is his rivalry with Kazakhs, which technically fits into the Vendetta set, but I've already talked about this on the Kazakhs thing, so we'll just move on to the cards. We've got 5 cards to discuss with Rengar, since we were blessed with the Rengar Pouncing card from Spirit Forge, but we're going to begin with the Unleashed cards first, starting with Rengar Pridestalker. It's very simple. When you play a unit, give it +1 might this turn. I suppose in a way this loosely maps to the ferocity mechanic that he's got in League of Legends, where he builds these stacks through aggressive play, and after 4 stacks, the next ability is achieved. And so he can develop this really strong board presence. And I suppose that's close to this, but in this one, this is way more flexible in Riftbound, where that 1 might can go on not just the unit that enters that play, but on another unit that's already on the board. So you could have an irresistible Feyfolk that's squeaking by, and then all of a sudden it builds up this might that's much stronger than your opponent anticipated. This was actually something I didn't realize in the pre-Rift event until my opponent mercifully had pointed it out after our match, of course. But the fact that it could go on any unit, which blew my mind. It just shows that even though it's a very simple mechanism, it's very versatile, which I think makes him a pretty good threat. Maybe if he had purple instead of red or orange, he'd be a bigger threat. But what really makes these Rengar decks hum is his signature spell, Thrill of the Hunt, named directly after his League of Legends ultimate. It's a 2 energy, 1 power, whether that's body or fury, and it's a reaction speed spell, so it can be played anytime, even before spells and abilities resolve, where you banish a friendly unit, then its owner plays it to any battlefield, ignoring its cost. In League, Thrill of the Hunt allows Rengar to turn invisible, revealing the nearest enemy and then practically leaping across the battlefield to assassinate the target. Where in Riftbound, you kind of can do the same thing. You can leap from one battlefield to another, suddenly repositioning yourself, and the unit ends up where you exactly want it to be. Or you can flash a unit when it's being targeted by other spells or abilities, so it can forego having to suffer damage or getting stunned. I got to utilize this in my pre-rift and it was amazing. The rare champion unit out of Fury, Rengar Unseen, is Keyword Soup. It's a 4 energy, 1 power cost with 4 might, and it has Accelerate, where you may pay 1 energy and 1 Fury power as an additional cost to have me enter ready. Assault 2, so it gets 2 additional might when it's an attacker. Deflect, so opponents must pay power to choose me with a spell or ability. And Ganking, allowing it to move from battlefield to battlefield. This unit ultimately has main character energy with the fact that it's got Deflect and is a little bit more difficult to kill, but don't really see it in play much these days because it does a lot of things with keywords, but it's really difficult to manage, especially in the world of Fury, where you've got the 4 energy cost, so it's competing with spots for Kai'Sa, for instance. Feels like it just has a bunch of keywords all mashed together just to give it something to do. So flavor-wise, I mean, I guess the ganking is something, the ability to jump from battlefield to battlefield, accelerate so that he's eager to strike, and assault, allowing him to be more effective on attack. But other than that, a fine unit. Now, the epic champion unit out of Body, on the other hand, oh boy, this is a good one. This is a 5 energy, 1 body power cost unit with 6 might. Rengar Trophy Hunter has the ambush keyword, where you may play me as a reaction to a battlefield where you have units. And it has the ability, I can be played to a battlefield where there are enemy units, even if you don't have units there. The ambush keyword in the set is already doing some great things. I mean, the fact that you can bring this unit into any battlefield where you have units, surprising your opponent, and it can't be counterspelled, pretty effective. So the fact that this now has the added ability to be able to lead to any battlefield, oh my. We're already seeing play with this card in mid-range Master Yi decks, for example, and a lot of other orange body decks will be playing this card. I mean, it's just an incredible value, right? But seeing this flavor-wise with League of Legends kind of ties with the thrill of the hunt mechanism, being able to just jump in at a moment's notice. But it's just what Rengar does, right? The fact that he can appear at a moment's notice is very intimidating. When you see an opponent with 5 runes standing, you gotta be on your heels a little bit there. Not to mention, this plays magnificently with the legend ability, where you can add +1 to a unit. So he could have 7 might, or he could give another unit at that battlefield that 1 additional might, making it almost impossible to take down your units, having a really solid board presence. Going into the Wayback Machine of Spirit Forged, we have the other Fury champion unit, Rengar Pouncing. This is the 3 energy, 1 Fury power costed unit with 3 might, and it has the reaction, play anytime, even before spells and abilities resolve, including to a battlefield you control. It has Assault 2, and it can be played to a battlefield you're attacking. This is effectively the precursor to the ambush keyword, with one small note here is that this can only be played to a battlefield you're attacking. So you can't play it defensively. I may have made that mistake once or twice when I was learning this card, but it still has a very powerful impact. When you're attacking and it has Assault 2, you just got this 5 might unit that just suddenly appears, and just appearing at a moment's notice that can't be countered. I mean, this is still very effective. We've seen this already with Prismaticism winning the RQ in Atlanta, for example. So I expect to see this in just about every Fury deck now, especially with the prominence of purple and green being able to counterspell or trying to bounce units back to hand. You don't mind this one coming back to hand. In fact, you're probably building a deck to do this yourself. And flavor-wise, I mean, this basically mimics the brush mechanics that you get, right? Where you're leaping out to unsuspecting targets and being able to attack suddenly. So this really captures what Rengar is all about. There's also this really funny note of the fact that all of his champion units have the cat tag. So if Ivern ever becomes a thing, he can effectively utilize the brushes that are created from that legend ability. And as a reminder, Ivern gets to create brushes from other battlefields, giving you +1 might to birds, dogs, poros, and cats. I mean, it's probably not relevant in the current meta, but just a fun thing on Nexus nights. Now, I've been trying to be better about noting any Legends of Runeterra similarities that these cards could be pulled from, but there is no Rengar card, and there is no Kha'Zix too, so this is a rivalry purely in League of Legends. So all the mechanics that had to be created for Riftbound just had to be pulled out of thin air, I guess, for Riot. But the playstyle with Rengar is pure aggro, as you would imagine with the Furion body domains. You want to ambush your opponent with all of these powerful units, giving them an additional might, or giving additional might to some of the smaller units so that you can win the matchup against their weenies, for example. But the legend ability is very flexible, and we've seen a lot of legends that have that flexibility be very successful in this meta too. You see it with Diana or with Annie, for instance, of something that's pretty simple but versatile. So you're not pigeonholed into one particular lane like you might see with a LeBlanc, for example, or Ivern. And so this makes him pretty viable. Catch is the fact that it's Furion body, right? And as we saw in Sydney, unless you had purple in one of your domains, you had a hard time with it. In fact, the best deck for Rengar in the Sydney one was the dreaded Aurora deck, which we'll have to talk about that some other time, I think. I'm trying to be positive with this. But even if Rengar the Legend isn't utilized as much, his champion units for sure are. Particularly the Trophy Hunter and the one from Spirit Forge, the Pouncing. I think those are going to be two of the most utilized units for quite some time in the meta, just because of also their flexibility, depending on whatever deck style you're trying to build. Mid-range, aggro, they can do them all. When I was preparing to research Rengar, I kind of figured that his lore was going to be very thin, and that's pretty much what I saw. It's generic and leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, the fact that it's just your run-of-the-mill cast out of his tribe, had something to prove, and did it only to not meet expectations. It is what it is. Plus, his rivalry with Kha'Zix is probably more explored than his backstory is, which I find pretty interesting for this character. I think if Rengar ever becomes a bigger thing, he has a lot of possibility to be explored here, especially with family dynamics, things of that. I feel like he could just be a good cinematic character. Lord knows he appears in so many others already. Maybe there's something along the line for him further on down the road. But the cards and gameplay wise are very, very different. He's a versatile legend, and his cards are going to see play for quite some time. They give you a lot of value. The ambush ability is a very strong keyword, and so I think we're going to see him in a lot of Fury and body decks for quite a while. So while his lore is lean, the card design is actually not too bad. But as far as how he translates over from League of Legends into Riftbound, I'm going to have to leave that for you to tell me, since I've never played. So how do you think Riot did in porting over his mechanics from that game over into Riftbound? Let me know in the comments below. I'm very curious to see your thoughts on not just how he played, but what you think of his lore. So that'll do it for this episode. And new episodes are planned every week, so subscribe and like and all that stuff if this is your kind of thing. But until next time, thanks for watching.